The sun was setting over the busy streets of Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Vin Diesel, the famous actor known for his tough guy roles and heartwarming personality, had just finished a long day of meetings. He decided to take a break and go for a quiet walk through his neighborhood. As he strolled past shops, cafes, and street vendors, his mind wandered to simpler times when life wasn't filled with scripts, interviews, and red carpets. His thoughts eventually led him to one of his favorite places, his restaurant. This restaurant wasn't just another business venture for Vin. It was deeply personal. It was a place where people could gather, share meals, and feel at home. From the cozy interior decorated with warm lighting to the friendly staff who treated every customer like family, the restaurant reflected Vin's values: hard work, kindness, and community. He often visited unannounced, not because he didn't trust his employees, but because he loved being part of the atmosphere. Tonight, however, something felt different. As Vin walked closer to the entrance, he noticed that the usual hum of laughter and chatter seemed quieter than normal. There was an odd tension in the air, almost as if the building itself was holding its breath. Pushing open the door, he stepped inside. The smell of grilled food greeted him immediately, comforting yet slightly off. The staff moved around efficiently, balancing plates and taking orders, but none of them seemed to notice their boss had arrived. That wasn't unusual. Vin preferred blending in rather than drawing attention. But tonight, there was something else. Something unsettling. He paused near the hostess stand, scanning the room. Families sat together at tables, couples shared desserts, and groups of friends laughed over drinks. Everything appeared normal on the surface, but Vin couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then, faintly, he heard it, a soft, muffled sound coming from somewhere deeper within the restaurant. At first he thought it might be the wind rattling against the windows or perhaps a piece of kitchen equipment making noise. But as he listened more closely, he realized it wasn't either of those things. It was a cry, a child's cry. Vin's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head sharply, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. None of the customers seemed alarmed, which meant they probably hadn't heard it, or maybe they were too distracted by their meals to care. Slowly, cautiously, Vin began moving toward the back of the restaurant. The cries grew louder as he approached the storage area, where stacks of supplies and crates lined the walls. Finally, he stopped in front of the walk-in freezer, a heavy metal door standing slightly ajar. The sound was definitely coming from inside. His stomach tightened into knots. Why would a child be in the freezer? And why did the cries sound so desperate? Vin hesitated for only a moment before reaching out and pulling the door open. A rush of icy air hit him instantly, sending chills down his spine. Inside, the shelves were stocked with ingredients and supplies, but tucked away in the far corner was a small figure wrapped in a thin blanket. A little boy no older than 6 sat huddled there, trembling violently. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he sobbed uncontrollably. Vin froze, staring at the scene in disbelief. For a split second, he wondered if this was some kind of cruel prank or misunderstanding. But the boy's wide, frightened eyes told him otherwise. "Hey, buddy," Vin said softly, kneeling down to the child's level. His voice was calm, though his pulse raced wildly. "What are you doing in here?" The boy sniffled, looking up at Vin with a mixture of fear and relief. I got locked in," he stammered between sobs. "I don't know how." Vin's protective instincts kicked in immediately. Without wasting another second, he reached out and scooped the boy into his arms. The child was freezing cold, his tiny body shaking uncontrollably. "It's okay now," Vin murmured reassuringly. "You're safe, let's get you out of here." Carefully, he carried the boy out of the freezer and closed the heavy door behind them. As they stepped into the warmth of the restaurant, Vin glanced around, searching for someone, anyone, who could help. A young server passing by noticed him and gasped. "Mr. Diesel, what happened?" she asked, her eyes widening as she saw the child in his arms. "I found him in the freezer," Vin replied, his tone sharp with urgency. "Get him some blankets and hot chocolate. Now." The server nodded quickly and hurried off to fetch what he needed. Meanwhile, Vin turned his attention back to the boy, whose tears had slowed but hadn't stopped completely. "You're going to be okay, buddy," he repeated gently. "Just stay with me." Once the server returned with blankets and a steaming mug of hot chocolate, Vin carefully wrapped the boy up, ensuring he was as warm as possible. The child clutched the mug tightly, sipping slowly as color began to return to his pale face. Vin crouched beside him, studying him closely. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked softly. The boy hesitated, glancing up at Vin with wary eyes. After a long pause, he whispered, "Liam." "Well, Liam," Vin said with a small smile. "Can you tell me how you ended up in the freezer?" Liam shook his head, fresh tears welling up in his eyes. "I don't know," he admitted. "I was hiding, and then the door closed. I couldn't get out." Vin's jaw clenched. Hiding? What could possibly make a child hide in such a dangerous place? His mind raced with questions, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Don't worry about that right now," he told Liam. "We'll figure everything out together. Just focus on getting warm, okay?" While Liam sipped his hot chocolate, Vin stood up and scanned the room once again. This time, his gaze landed on the manager, who had finally noticed the commotion and was approaching with a worried expression. "What's going on?" the manager asked nervously, clearly sensing trouble brewing. "That's what I'd like to know," Vin replied, his voice low but firm. "How does a kid end up locked in our freezer?" the manager stammered, claiming ignorance. According to him, Liam wasn't even supposed to be in the restaurant. This explanation only deepened Vin's suspicion. Determined to uncover the truth, he began questioning the staff. One waitress admitted she'd seen Liam earlier sitting alone at a table, but assumed he was waiting for his parents. Another mentioned hearing rumors about homeless families occasionally seeking shelter in nearby businesses during harsh weather. Could that be the case here? Vin's protective instincts flared even stronger. Whoever this child was, he deserved answers and safety. As he looked back at Liam, still wrapped in blankets and sipping his drink, Vin made a silent promise to himself. He wouldn't let this boy slip through the cracks, not on his watch. As the initial shock of finding Liam in the freezer began to settle, Vin's mind raced with questions. How had a child ended up in such a dangerous situation? Was it negligence on the part of the staff, or was there something more sinister at play? Determined to get answers, Vin turned his attention to the restaurant employees, who were now gathered nervously near the kitchen entrance. Their expressions ranged from confusion to guilt, and Vin could sense that they were hiding something, or at least avoiding the truth. "Let me make one thing clear," Vin said, his voice firm but controlled. "This is not just a business. This is a place where people come to feel safe, to connect, to be part of a community. If we can't even keep a child safe here, then what are we doing wrong?" His words hung heavy in the air, silencing any murmurs among the staff. He locked eyes with the manager, who shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "I want to know everything. Who saw this boy first? Why didn't anyone notice him earlier?" The manager hesitated, clearly struggling to find an explanation. "Mr. Diesel, I swear we didn't know he was here," he stammered. "We thought he might have been waiting for someone, maybe a customer's kid who got left behind." Vin's expression darkened. "And you didn't think to check, you didn't think to ask questions when you saw a child sitting alone?" His tone was sharp, leaving no room for excuses. The manager looked down, unable to meet Vin's piercing stare. One of the waitresses stepped forward timidly, her hands clasped tightly together. "I did see him earlier," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "He was sitting by himself at a table near the window. I assumed he was waiting for his parents to finish eating. I didn't think anything of it." Her voice trailed off as tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," Vin sighed deeply, running a hand over his bald head. He wanted to stay angry, to hold them accountable for their carelessness, but he also understood that fear and uncertainty often clouded judgment. Still, apologies weren't enough. Not when a child's life had been put in danger. "Sorry, isn't going to cut it," he said firmly. "What matters now is making sure this never happens again. We need better systems in place. Someone should always be checking on unattended children or unusual situations. And if you don't know how to handle it, you call me directly. Got it?" The staff nodded quickly, their faces pale with a mix of shame and determination. Vin turned, back to Liam, who was still seated nearby, clutching the blanket around his shoulders. Despite the warmth of the restaurant, the boy still looked fragile, as though the cold hadn't fully left his body. Vin crouched down beside him once again, softening his tone. "Hey, Liam," he said gently. "Are you feeling a little better?" Liam nodded slowly, though his wide eyes betrayed the lingering fear inside him. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice trembling. Vin smiled reassuringly. "You're welcome, buddy. But I need your help with something. Can you tell me why you were here? Were you looking for someone? Or were you trying to hide from something?" For a moment, Liam hesitated, his small fingers gripping the edge of the blanket. Then, in a voice so quiet it was almost inaudible, he replied, "I live close by. My aunt works late sometimes, and I get scared being home alone. So I came here because it's warm, and there are people. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Vin's heart sank. Here was a child, barely old enough to understand the world, already carrying burdens far beyond his years. He reached out and placed a comforting hand on Liam's shoulder. "You didn't cause trouble, okay? You did what you thought was best. But no kid should have to feel scared or alone like that, do you hear me?" Liam nodded again, though tears began to form in his eyes. Vin pulled him into a gentle hug, letting him know he wasn't alone anymore. As he held the boy, Vin's mind raced with possibilities. What kind of life had led Liam to seek refuge in a restaurant freezer? Where were his parents? And what would happen to him now? Realizing that Liam couldn't answer all these questions right away, Vin stood up and addressed the staff once more. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice steady and commanding. "From this moment on, we're taking responsibility for Liam. Until we figure out what's going on, he stays with us. No arguments. Understood?" The staff exchanged nervous glances but nodded in agreement. They knew better than to argue with Vin when he spoke with such conviction. Satisfied for now, Vin turned his attention to the next steps. He pulled out his phone and dialed Child Protective Services, CPS, explaining the situation briefly and requesting immediate assistance. While waiting for them to arrive, he made sure Liam was comfortable, bringing him toys from the restaurant's kid-friendly corner and sitting beside him to keep him company. Over the next hour, Vin stayed by Liam's side, asking gentle questions to piece together more of the story. Liam revealed that his parents had passed away a few years ago, leaving him in the care of his aunt. However, his aunt worked long hours and often struggled to make ends meet. On nights when she couldn't afford daycare or babysitters, Liam would wander the streets until she returned home. Sometimes he'd find shelter in places like libraries, parks, or, even tonight, the restaurant. Hearing this broke Vin's heart. He couldn't imagine what it must feel like for a child to grow up without stability, love, or security. It reminded him of his own childhood, growing up in a working-class family where money was tight, but love was abundant. That's why he vowed silently to ensure Liam wouldn't spend another night alone or unsafe. When the CPS workers finally arrived, they thanked Vin for his quick thinking and assured him they'd take good care of Liam. They explained that his aunt had been reported missing weeks ago, leaving Liam essentially orphaned. Vin listened intently, his jaw tightening with every detail. Once Liam was taken away to a temporary foster home, Vin felt a strange emptiness settle over him. He had done the right thing, but it didn't feel like enough. That night, as he walked back to his car, Vin couldn't stop thinking about Liam. The image of the boy huddled in the freezer replayed in his mind, haunting him. He realized that, while he had saved Liam physically, there was still so much work to be done to ensure the boy's future was secure. With renewed determination, Vin decided to take matters into his own hands. The following morning, Vin reached out to trusted, friends and colleagues within his network, explaining Liam's situation and asking for help in finding him a stable home. He also contacted social workers, offering financial support and resources to speed up the process. Meanwhile, he visited Liam daily at the foster home, bringing gifts, books, and stories to keep his spirits high. Each visit strengthened their bond, and Liam began to trust Vin completely. Word of Vin's actions spread quickly, earning admiration from fans and critics alike. People praised him not just for his fame but for his humanity. For Vin, however, the reward was simpler, knowing he'd made a difference in Liam's life. As days turned into weeks, Vin continued to advocate for Liam, ensuring that the boy received the care and attention he deserved. He arranged for therapy sessions, enrolled him in school activities, and even helped him reconnect with distant relatives who might provide additional support. Through it all, Vin remained a constant presence in Liam's life, proving that heroes aren't defined by their roles on screen but by the impact they have off it. By the time Liam settled into his new foster family, a kind couple who promised to give him the love and stability he needed, Vin felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. Saving Liam hadn't just changed the boy's life, it had reminded Vin of the power of compassion and the importance of paying attention to the world around us. Even heroes need reminders sometimes, and Vin was grateful for his. The days following Liam's rescue were a whirlwind for Vin Diesel. While the initial shock of finding the boy in the freezer had subsided, the weight of the situation settled heavily on his shoulders. He couldn't shake the image of Liam, cold, frightened, and alone, huddled in that cramped space. It gnawed at him, not just as a businessman responsible for the safety of his establishment, but as a human being who believed deeply in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. After ensuring Liam was safe with Child Protective Services, CPS, Vin threw himself into understanding the bigger picture. Who was this little boy? What circumstances had led him to wander into Vin's restaurant in search of warmth and shelter? And most importantly, how could Vin ensure that Liam's future would be brighter than his past? Vin began by reaching out to CPS officials requesting updates on Liam's case. They informed him that Liam's aunt, the only family member he had left, had disappeared weeks ago without a trace. Neighbors reported seeing her leave town abruptly, leaving behind unpaid bills and an empty apartment. With no other relatives, stepping forward, Liam was classified as a ward of the state. For now, he would stay in temporary foster care until a permanent solution could be found. This news hit Vin hard. He had grown up in a tight-knit household where love and support were constants even during tough times. The thought of Liam being bounced around from one unfamiliar home to another made his chest tighten with anger and sadness. No kid deserves that, Vin muttered to himself late one night as he sat in his office, staring at photos of Liam, smiling shyly after receiving a stuffed dinosaur from Vin. Not on my watch. Determined to take action, Vin started making calls. He reached out to trusted friends, colleagues, and influential figures within his network, explaining Liam's story and asking for help. Some offered financial assistance, while others provided leads on potential foster families or legal advice. One friend, a prominent lawyer, volunteered to assist with navigating the complexities of the adoption process, if it came to that. Another connected Vin with a non-profit organization dedicated to helping children in foster care find stable homes. But Vin didn't stop there. He knew that simply finding a home for Liam wasn't enough. The boy needed emotional support too. Trauma like what Liam had experienced left scars that ran deep, and Vin wanted to make sure Liam had access to everything he needed to heal. He arranged for therapy sessions with a child psychologist, enrolling Liam in programs designed to help kids process grief and abandonment. He also signed Liam up for extracurricular activities, art classes, soccer practice, and music lessons, to give him a sense of normalcy and joy. Every day, Vin visited Liam at the temporary foster home where he'd been placed. At first, Liam was hesitant, unsure whether Vin's kindness was genuine or fleeting. But over time, their bond grew stronger. Vin brought toys, books, and snacks, always making sure to engage Liam in conversation. He asked about his day, listened intently when Liam talked about school or his favorite cartoon characters, and shared stories from his own childhood. Slowly but surely, Liam began to trust Vin, opening up about his fears and dreams. One afternoon, as they sat together on the porch of the foster home, Liam looked up at Vin with wide, curious eyes. "Are you really going to keep visiting me?" he asked softly, almost afraid to hear the answer. Vin smiled warmly, ruffling Liam's hair. "Of course, buddy. I told you, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me now." Liam grinned, though a hint of doubt still lingered in his expression. Vin noticed it immediately. Kneeling down to meet Liam's gaze, he added, "I mean it, Liam, I promise. No matter what happens next, I'll make sure you're okay. You deserve that." That moment marked a turning point in their relationship. From then on, Liam seemed more relaxed around Vin, hugging him tightly whenever they met and eagerly sharing updates about his life. Whether it was scoring a goal in soccer practice or drawing a picture of dinosaurs, his newfound obsession, Liam lit up whenever Vin showed interest. For Vin, these small victories felt monumental. Every smile, every laugh, every sign of progress reminded him why he'd stepped into this role, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Meanwhile, Vin continued working tirelessly behind the scenes to secure Liam's future. He attended meetings with CPS representatives, advocating passionately for Liam's best interests. When bureaucratic delays threatened to slow down the placement process, Vin used his influence to push things forward. His persistence paid off when CPS identified a potential foster family, a kind couple named Sarah and Mark, who expressed genuine interest in providing Liam with a loving home. Before finalizing the arrangement, Vin insisted on meeting Sarah and Mark personally. He invited them to his restaurant, treating them to dinner while carefully observing their interactions with Liam. To his relief, the couple proved to be warm, patient, and understanding. They asked thoughtful questions, listened attentively to Liam's needs, and reassured him that they would do everything in their power to make him feel welcome. By the end of the evening, Liam was holding hands with Sarah, giggling as she teased him about his dinosaur drawings. Though Vin was happy to see Liam bonding with Sarah and Mark, parting ways wasn't easy. On the day Liam officially moved in, with his new foster parents, Vin accompanied him to their home, carrying a bag filled with gifts and essentials. As he helped unpack Liam's belongings, he fought back tears, reminding himself that this was the right decision. Liam belonged somewhere he could feel safe, loved and supported. A place where he could grow into the amazing person Vin knew he was destined to become. Before leaving, Vin knelt down beside Liam one last time. "This is your new home now, buddy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But remember, you can call me anytime, day or night. If you ever need anything, or even if you just want to talk, I'm here for you." Liam nodded, throwing his arms around Vin in a tight hug. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice trembling. "For everything." As Vin drove away from the house, he allowed himself a moment to reflect. Saving Liam hadn't been easy. It had required patience, determination, and countless sleepless nights. But it had been worth every second. Watching Liam transform from a scared, lonely boy into someone who laughed freely and trusted openly reaffirmed Vin's belief in the power of compassion. Heroes weren't defined by their fame or fortune. They were defined by the lives they touched and the legacies they left behind. Word of Vin's efforts spread quickly, earning praise from fans and critics alike. Social media buzzed with admiration for the actor-turned-guardian, with hashtags like a real-life hero trending worldwide. Journalists clamored for interviews, eager to learn more about the story. But Vin brushed off the attention, redirecting focus to organizations helping children in similar situations. "This isn't about me," he told reporters during a rare press appearance. "It's about Liam and the millions of kids out there who need someone to stand up for them. We all have the power to make a difference. All we have to do is look around and ask, who needs help?" Back at his restaurant, Vin implemented new policies to prevent incidents like Liam's from happening again. Staff members underwent mandatory training on identifying vulnerable individuals and responding appropriately. A designated safe space was created for anyone seeking refuge, complete years. The months following Liam's placement with Sarah and Mark marked a turning point, not just for the boy, but also for Vin Diesel. While Liam began adjusting to his new life, Vin found himself reflecting on the profound impact this experience had on him personally. He realized that saving Liam wasn't just about rescuing one child. It was about awakening a deeper sense of purpose within himself. This realization spurred Vin to take even greater action, ensuring that no other child would ever feel as abandoned or forgotten as Liam once did. Vin started by implementing sweeping changes at his restaurant. The incident with Liam had exposed glaring gaps in how businesses handled situations involving vulnerable individuals. Determined to set an example, Vin introduced comprehensive training programs for all employees. These sessions focused on recognizing signs of distress in customers, whether it was a child sitting alone, someone seeking shelter during harsh weather, or anyone who seemed out of place. Staff members were taught to approach such situations with empathy and care, prioritizing human connection over protocol. In addition to employee training, Vin transformed part of his restaurant into what he called the community corner. This cozy space featured comfortable seating, books, games, and free Wi-Fi, designed specifically for people who needed a safe haven, even if only for a short while. A sign hung prominently above the area reading, "Everyone deserves warmth, kindness, and respect. You belong here." To further support those in need, Vin partnered with local charities to provide meals and resources to homeless families and struggling individuals. Every Friday evening, volunteers from nearby shelters came to distribute food packages and offer assistance to anyone visiting the community corner. Word of these initiatives spread quickly throughout the neighborhood, earning Vin widespread praise. Customers began flocking to the restaurant not just for its delicious food, but also for the welcoming atmosphere it offered. Parents brought their children to play in the community corner. Seniors stopped by for companionship, and weary workers found solace in its quiet corners. What started as a small gesture grew into something much larger, a beacon of hope in a busy city where many felt invisible. But Vin didn't stop there. Inspired by Liam's story, he launched a foundation dedicated to helping children in foster care and those living in unstable environments. Named Liam's Light, the organization aimed to provide financial aid, educational opportunities, and emotional support to kids like Liam. Through fundraisers, partnerships with nonprofits, and donations from his vast network of friends and fans, Vin raised millions of dollars within the first year alone. The funds went toward building community centers, funding scholarships, and creating mentorship programs that paired at-risk youth with caring adults. One of the most impactful projects under Liam's Light was the creation of safe spaces across Los Angeles. Modeled after the community corner in Vin's restaurant, these safe spaces were established in schools, libraries, and community centers. Each location was equipped with essentials like blankets, hygiene kits, and snacks, along with trained counselors available to assist anyone in crisis. Posters advertising the program were plastered across the city, encouraging people to seek help without fear of judgment. Vin made it a point to stay actively involved in every aspect of Liam's Light. He attended board meetings, visited project sites, and personally met with beneficiaries to hear their stories. On weekends, he often joined volunteers in distributing supplies or mentoring young participants in the program. For Vin, this hands-on involvement wasn't just about leadership, it was about staying grounded and connected to the mission. It reminded him daily why he had embarked on this journey in the first place. Meanwhile, Liam continued to thrive in his new home. Under the loving care of Sarah and Mark, he blossomed into a confident, curious child, eager to explore the world around him. His passion for dinosaurs remained strong, leading him to join a junior paleontology club at school. He excelled academically, thanks in large part to the tutoring and encouragement provided through Liam's Light. Most importantly, Liam finally felt like he belonged somewhere. For the first time in years, he could laugh freely, dream big, and imagine a future full of possibilities. Vin maintained a close relationship with Liam, visiting him regularly and keeping tabs on his progress. Their bond had evolved from protector and rescued to something more akin to family. During one visit, Liam proudly showed Vin a drawing he'd made of a T-Rex stomping through a jungle. "Look, Mr. Vin," he exclaimed, pointing excitedly at the picture. "This is Rexy. He's my favorite dinosaur because he's brave, just like you." Vin chuckled, kneeling down to examine the artwork. "Wow, Rexy looks pretty tough," he said, pretending to be impressed. "But I think he might have some competition when it comes to bravery. Have you seen yourself lately? You're fearless, buddy." Liam beamed, clearly delighted by the compliment. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Vin replied earnestly. "You've been through so much, and yet here you are, smiling, learning, growing. That takes real courage." Moments like these filled Vin with immense pride. Seeing Liam overcome his fears and embrace life reinforced his belief in the resilience of the human spirit. It also fueled his determination to expand Liam's light beyond Los Angeles. By the end of the year, branches of the organization had opened in cities across the United States, each tailored to address the unique needs of its community. From New York to Chicago to Miami, safe spaces popped up in neighborhoods where they were needed most, offering refuge and resources to countless individuals. As the foundation gained momentum, Vin became a vocal advocate for systemic change. He used his platform to raise awareness about issues affecting vulnerable populations, particularly children in foster care. In interviews, speeches, and social media posts, he urged others to look beyond themselves and consider how they could contribute to making the world a better place. "We're all capable of being heroes," he often said. "It doesn't require superpowers or fame. Sometimes it's as simple as lending a hand, listening, or showing up when someone needs you." His message resonated deeply, inspiring thousands of people to take action in their own communities. Teachers donated classroom supplies. Business owners opened their doors to those in need. Strangers volunteered their time and skills to organizations, like Liam's Light. Together, they formed a ripple effect of kindness that extended far beyond anything Vin could have accomplished alone. Despite the overwhelming success of his efforts, Vin remained humble. He knew that true change took time and persistence. There were still challenges to face: bureaucratic hurdles, limited funding, and societal indifference. But he refused to let these obstacles deter him. Instead, he channeled his energy into finding solutions, constantly reminding himself of the faces behind the statistics. Children like Liam, whose lives depended on the compassion and dedication of others. One evening, as Vin sat in his office, reviewing plans for a new safe space location, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was a photo message from Sarah, showing Liam standing proudly in front of a science fair display titled, "Dinosaurs, the Real Heroes." Beneath the table was a handwritten note addressed to Vin. "Dear Mr. Vin, thank you for believing in me. Because of you, I'm not scared anymore. Love, Liam." Tears welled up in Vin's eyes as he stared at the image. In that moment, he realized that Liam wasn't the only one who had changed. This little boy, who had once been lost and afraid, had taught Vin the true meaning of heroism. It wasn't about performing grand gestures or saving the world single-handedly. It was about showing up, day after day, and doing whatever it took to make someone's life a little brighter. With renewed resolve, Vin tucked the photo into his wallet, vowing never to forget the lesson Liam had given him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories, and new opportunities to make a difference. And Vin was ready, for Liam, for the countless others like him, and for the belief that even the smallest acts of kindness could create waves of change. As months turned into a year, the impact of Vin Diesel's efforts began to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond what he had initially imagined. Liam's story, once a quiet tragedy hidden in the shadows of Los Angeles, had become a beacon of hope for countless others. Through his foundation, Liam's Light, and the changes he implemented in his restaurant, Vin had sparked something extraordinary, a movement rooted in compassion, community, and action. The Safe Spaces initiative, which started as a small corner in Vin's restaurant, had grown into a nationwide network of havens for those in need. Each location was designed not just to provide shelter, but also to foster connection and dignity. Volunteers greeted visitors with warm smiles, offering them food, blankets, and a listening ear. Local artists painted murals on the walls, depicting scenes of unity and resilience. Schools donated books and games, creating mini libraries where children could escape into stories. Even businesses pitched in, sponsoring events like free haircuts, health checkups, and job training workshops. What began as a single act of kindness had evolved into a collective effort to uplift entire communities. Vin himself remained deeply involved, traveling across the country to oversee the expansion of Liam's Light. He visited each new safe space, personally, ensuring that it reflected the values he held dear: inclusivity, empathy, and empowerment. During these trips, he met people from all walks of life: single mothers struggling to make ends meet, teenagers aging out of foster care, veterans battling homelessness, and listened intently to their stories. Their courage inspired him to push harder, dream bigger, and keep fighting for systemic change. One particularly memorable visit took place in Chicago, where a newly opened safe space was located near a low-income housing complex. As Vin walked through the bustling center, he noticed a young girl sitting alone at a table, sketching furiously in a notebook. Intrigued, he approached her and asked if he could take a look at her drawings. The girl hesitated before handing over the notebook, revealing page after page of vibrant illustrations featuring characters dressed in capes and masks. "These are superheroes?" Vin asked, smiling. The girl nodded shyly. "They're my friends," she whispered. "They protect me when I'm scared." Her words struck a chord deep within Vin. Here was another child using creativity as a shield against the harshness of the world, much like Liam had done with his love for dinosaurs. Determined to encourage her talent, Vin spent the next hour talking to her about her art, asking questions and sharing his own experiences of finding strength in imagination. Before leaving, he promised to send her a set of professional art supplies and invited her to participate in an upcoming youth art exhibition sponsored by Liam's Light. Stories like this filled Vin's days, reminding him why every moment mattered. Whether it was mentoring a budding artist, helping a family secure affordable housing, or simply sitting down with someone to share a meal, he poured his heart into everything he did. His dedication didn't go unnoticed. People often remarked on how genuine he was, how he treated everyone, from celebrities to strangers, with the same level of respect and kindness. For Vin, there was no hierarchy when it came to humanity. Everyone deserved to be seen and heard. Back home in Los Angeles, Liam continued to flourish under Sarah and Mark's care. Now 8 years old, he had grown into a confident and curious boy who loved school, soccer, and of course dinosaurs. Every weekend, Vin picked him up for outings, trips to museums, zoos, and even movie sets. On one such occasion, while touring a film studio, Liam tugged at Vin's sleeve and asked, "Do you think Rexy could star in one of your movies someday?" Vin laughed, pretending to consider the idea. Maybe we can cast him as the hero, but only if he agrees to fight bad guys instead of stomping on innocent people." Liam giggled, nodding enthusiastically. "Deal, and I'll write the script." Their playful banter highlighted the bond they shared, a mix of mentorship, friendship, and family. Liam adored Vin, not just because he was famous, but because he had shown up when no one else had. In turn, Vin cherished Liam, seeing bits of himself in the boy's resilience and determination. Together, they were proof that even the darkest moments could give rise to light. While Liam thrived personally, his story continued to inspire others. Schools began incorporating discussions about empathy and community service into their curriculums, using Liam's journey as a case study. Teachers encouraged students to think critically about ways they could help those around them, whether by volunteering, fundraising, or simply being kind to classmates facing challenges. One elementary school even launched a Dino Heroes campaign, challenging kids to perform good deeds and earn badges modeled after Liam's favorite creatures. The media played a significant role in amplifying Liam's impact. Documentaries, news segments, and magazine features chronicled Vin's transformation from Hollywood star to real-life advocate. Audiences marveled at how seamlessly he balanced his career with his philanthropic work, proving that fame could be a force for good. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #BeALight and Every Child Matters, urging people to take action in their own communities. Celebrities joined the cause, donating funds, hosting fundraisers, and spreading awareness to millions of followers. But perhaps the most profound effect of Liam's story was the shift it sparked in everyday individuals. Strangers who had never met Vin or Liam found themselves moved to act. A retired teacher in Texas started a free tutoring program for underserved youth. A group of high school students in Florida organized a clothing drive for foster kids. Single dad in Ohio began volunteering at a local shelter, bringing along his daughter to teach her the importance of giving back. These seemingly small acts added up, creating a chain reaction of kindness that reached corners of the world Vin had never dreamed of. Despite the widespread success, Vin knew there was still work to be done. Foster care systems remained overwhelmed, affordable housing shortages persisted, and inequality continued to plague society. Yet rather than feeling discouraged, Vin saw these challenges as opportunities to innovate and persevere. He partnered with policymakers to advocate for legislative reforms, pushing for increased funding for foster care programs, improved access to mental health services, and stronger protections for vulnerable populations. While progress was slow, every victory, no matter how minor, felt monumental. One evening, after a long day of meetings and site visits, Vin returned to his office to find a package waiting for him. Inside was a framed collage of photos sent by beneficiaries of Liam's Light. There were pictures of smiling children holding diplomas, families standing proudly in front of newly renovated homes, and volunteers posing with arms linked together. At the center of the collage was a handwritten note. "Thank you for showing us that we're not alone. Because of you, we've found our light." Tears pricked Vin's eyes as he traced the edges of the frame. This simple yet powerful reminder of his mission renewed his resolve. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, yes, but it would also bring new chances to make a difference. And Vin was ready. For Liam, for the countless others like him, and for the belief that even the smallest acts of kindness could create waves of change. As he placed the collage on his desk, Vin leaned back in his chair and smiled. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he knew one thing for certain: the light they had ignited together would continue to shine brightly, guiding others toward hope and healing. As the years passed, Vin Diesel's journey with Liam and the foundation Liam's Light became a defining chapter of his life, one that transcended fame, fortune, or even the glitz of Hollywood. What had started as a chance encounter in a restaurant freezer had grown into something far greater, a testament to the power of compassion, resilience, and community. The impact of their shared story wasn't confined to headlines or social media posts. It lived on in the hearts of those who had been touched by it. By now, Liam was 10 years old, a bright, confident boy who radiated joy and curiosity. Under the loving care of Sarah and Mark, he had blossomed into someone unrecognizable from the frightened child Vin had found huddled in the cold. He excelled in school, participated eagerly in extracurricular activities, and continued nurturing his passion for dinosaurs. His room was a museum of sorts, filled with books, models, and posters depicting prehistoric creatures. But Liam's interests weren't limited to ancient beasts anymore. He also loved storytelling, often crafting elaborate tales about brave heroes saving the world. Sometimes he'd share these stories with Vin during their weekend outings, asking for feedback or suggestions. "You know," Vin said one afternoon as they sat together at a park watching kids play soccer, "you've got a real talent for this. Maybe someday you'll write your own movie script." Liam grinned, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Maybe Rexy can be the star, and you can play him in the movie." Vin laughed heartily, ruffling Liam's hair. "Only if you promise to direct it, deal?" "Deal," Liam replied, shaking Vin's hand solemnly before bursting into giggles. Moments like these reminded Vin how far they had come, not just individually but together. Their bond had evolved beyond rescuer and rescued. It was now a partnership built on trust, love, and mutual admiration. For Vin, Liam represented hope, the kind that persisted even in the darkest moments. And for Liam, Vin was proof that heroes existed outside of movies, ready to step in when the world felt overwhelming. Meanwhile, Liam's Light had become a global phenomenon. From its humble beginnings as a single safe space in Los Angeles, the organization now operated in dozens of countries, reaching millions of people annually. Each location bore Vin's unmistakable touch: warm lighting, welcoming staff, and an atmosphere designed to make everyone feel valued. Whether it was a teenager seeking refuge from domestic violence, a family displaced by natural disasters, or a senior citizen looking for companionship, Liam's Light offered more than just resources. It provided dignity and belonging. The Foundation's success wasn't without challenges. Funding remained a constant concern, requiring Vin to host annual galas, collaborate with corporate sponsors, and rally supporters worldwide. Bureaucratic red tape often slowed progress, forcing him to navigate complex legal systems and advocate tirelessly for policy changes. Yet through it all, Vin never lost sight of his mission. Every obstacle only strengthened his resolve to keep pushing forward, driven by the faces behind the statistics, children like Liam, whose lives depended on the kindness of strangers. One of the most transformative aspects of Liam's Light was its focus on mentorship. Recognizing the importance of positive role models, Vin launched a program pairing at-risk youth with mentors from diverse backgrounds. These relationships were carefully cultivated, ensuring that both parties benefited from the exchange. Mentors provided guidance, encouragement, and practical support, while mentees offered fresh perspectives and boundless energy. Many of these connections turned into lifelong friendships, creating networks of care that extended far beyond the confines of the program. Vin himself took on several mentees over the years, including a spirited teenager named Maya. Like Liam, Maya had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes until she found stability with a loving adoptive family. When Vin first met her, she was shy and hesitant, unsure of her place in the world. But beneath her quiet exterior lay a fierce determination to succeed. With Vin's encouragement, Maya pursued her dream of becoming a filmmaker, eventually earning a scholarship to a prestigious film school. Years later, she returned to Liam's Light as a volunteer, using her skills to document the organization's work and inspire others to join the cause. Stories like Maya's fueled Vin's belief in the ripple effect of kindness. Every person helped had the potential to help someone else, creating a chain reaction that could transform entire communities. This philosophy guided everything he did, from small gestures like paying for a stranger's meal to large-scale initiatives like building affordable housing complexes. It wasn't about grandeur or recognition. It was about showing up consistently and making a difference, however big or small. Back in Los Angeles, Vin's restaurant remained a cornerstone of the neighborhood. The community corner had expanded into a vibrant hub where locals gathered to share meals, attend workshops, and celebrate milestones. On weekends, the space transformed into a mini theater, hosting screenings of classic films followed by discussions led by Vin himself. These events drew crowds of all ages, fostering intergenerational connections and sparking meaningful conversations. For many, the restaurant wasn't just a place to eat. It was a sanctuary, a reminder that they mattered. Despite his tireless efforts, Vin never sought the spotlight for himself. In interviews, he always redirected attention to the individuals and communities driving change. "This isn't my story," he would say earnestly. "It belongs to everyone who has ever dared to believe in a better tomorrow. Together, we're proving that no one is invisible and no act of kindness is too small." His humility resonated deeply, inspiring countless others to follow in his footsteps. Celebrities, athletes, and influencers joined the cause, amplifying its reach through their platforms. Grassroots movements sprang up in cities around the globe, each adapting Liam's Light's principles to fit local needs. Schools incorporated lessons on empathy and service into their curriculums, teaching students the value of giving back. Even corporations began prioritizing social responsibility, partnering with nonprofits to address systemic issues like poverty, inequality, and homelessness. But perhaps the most profound legacy of Liam's story was its ability to remind people of their shared humanity. In a world often divided by politics, religion, and culture, it served as a unifying force, a call to action rooted in love and understanding. Strangers reached out to one another, offering support in times of need. Neighbors organized block parties, breaking down barriers and building bridges. Communities rallied around causes bigger than themselves, proving that collective action could overcome even the toughest challenges. Years later, when Liam graduated from elementary school, Vin stood proudly beside him, clapping enthusiastically as the boy received his diploma. Afterward, they posed for photos with Sarah, Mark, and Liam's classmates, laughing and cheering as balloons floated skyward. As the sun set over the playground, casting golden light across the scene, Vin pulled Liam aside for a quiet moment. "Do you remember that day in the freezer?" Vin asked softly, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Liam nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, I was so scared." "I was scared too," Vin admitted, smiling gently. "But look at you now, you're stronger than anyone I know. And you've taught me something important, that even in the darkest places there's always light waiting to be found." Tears welled up in Liam's eyes as he hugged Vin tightly. "Thank you for finding me," he whispered. "No, buddy," Vin replied, returning the embrace. "Thank you for reminding me why we do what we do. You're the real hero here." That night, as Vin drove home, he reflected on everything that had transpired since that fateful evening. What began as a routine visit to his restaurant had turned into a lifelong commitment to making the world a better place. Along the way, he had discovered truths about himself, humanity, and the boundless potential of kindness. Heroes weren't defined by capes or scripts. They were ordinary people choosing to act with extraordinary courage and compassion. And so, Vin Diesel continued his journey, not as an actor or philanthropist, but as someone determined to leave a lasting legacy. For every child who needed shelter, every family yearning for stability, and every individual searching for hope, he vowed to keep showing up, to keep being the light in the darkness. Because in the end, that's what heroes did. They didn't wait for the perfect moment, they created it.